Washington, D.C., a rare and extraordinary moment in American politics. A bipartisan group of 47 members of Congress has demanded the resignation of a former president, Donald Trump, citing allegations that go to the heart of civilian control of the military. Today we break down the controversial events unfolding in the nation's capital, how a leaked memo has triggered calls for an unprecedented resignation demand, why lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are alarmed, and how this could reshape American civil-military relations for years to come. The controversy began with the leak of an internal classified memorandum, reportedly reviewed by congressional oversight committees. According to officials familiar with the matter, the document alleges that presidential involvement influenced the timing of certain sensitive military authorizations during ongoing national security operations. Lawmakers say the memo suggests that political calculations, not operational, necessity, delayed military action authorization. If true, this would challenge the long-standing principle that the military must be insulated from partisan influence. The memo was reportedly written about 3 weeks ago. On December 27th, members of Congress convened a closed-door emergency meeting to review the classified material. By the next day, a public letter had been released, calling on Donald Trump to resign from office. That letter was signed by 47 lawmakers, 31 Democrats and 16 Republicans. The bipartisan group argued that the conduct outlined in the memo undermined the constitutional obligations of the presidency, particularly the duty to prioritize national defense above political considerations. The letter was notably direct in its language. It stopped short of declaring guilt, but stated that the allegations were serious enough to demand immediate accountability and further investigation. Representative Michael McCaul, chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, read the letter aloud on the House floor. McCaul, a Republican and military veteran who previously supported Trump during past controversies, appeared visibly emotional during his statement. He said that remaining silent under such circumstances would violate his oath of office. Representative Adam Smith, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, said the contents of the memo amounted to a potential abuse of executive authority, raising questions about military readiness and operational integrity. The bipartisan nature of this call is what makes it especially significant. Historically, members of a president's own party rarely join in calls for resignation, unless the evidence is overwhelming and the institutional risks are too great to ignore. Several political analysts pointed out that this moment draws comparisons to the Watergate era, when Republican leaders privately informed President Richard Nixon that impeachment was inevitable, leading to his resignation. Unlike previous scandals, such as President Clinton's impeachment or Trump's first impeachment over Ukraine, this issue involves national defense decision-making. It's not about personal conduct or political favoritism. It's about the chain of command and how life-or-death military actions are authorized. According to individuals familiar with the memo, the document alleges that authorization for at least 3 military actions was delayed. These were reportedly time-sensitive operations, involving intelligence collection and force protection in volatile regions. Typically, such decisions follow established command channels to avoid operational risk and prevent political interference. However, the memo reportedly indicates that delays occurred only after presidential instructions were given, and that those delays were linked to political considerations, not operational assessments. What drew particular scrutiny were statements attributed to the president within the document. Sources say the language suggested that military actions were postponed based on whether specific senior military officers would appear at campaign events or publicly express support for Trump's leadership. If true, this would mark a dramatic breach of the norms that separate political campaigning from military command. U.S. law and military tradition strongly prohibit partisan involvement from active duty officers, and the use of military operations as political leverage would represent a clear violation of those principles. This has left many Republican lawmakers in a difficult position. On one hand, many face pressure from Trump's base, which remains deeply loyal and often views any criticism as politically motivated or conspiratorial. On the other hand, ignoring allegations that national security was potentially compromised for political reasons is ethically and politically risky. Analysts say there's little middle ground. Either the memo reflects real events, which could be indefensible, or the entire congressional review involving lawmakers from both parties is fundamentally flawed or dishonest. Legal and political scholars increasingly describe the situation as a slow-moving constitutional crisis. Jack Goldsmith, a former assistant attorney general under President George W. Bush, said that, if substantiated, the allegations would amount to a serious violation of the president's constitutional responsibilities. Andrew Weissman, a former federal prosecutor, argued that delaying defense operations for political reasons could carry institutional consequences and legal implications. Even the perception that military actions were manipulated for electoral purposes could be deeply damaging. A recent Military Times poll found that 68% of active duty personnel disapprove of any perceived use of military operations for political gain. Morale, trust in leadership, and the integrity of civilian oversight all depend on a clear separation between politics and national defense. Looking ahead, this controversy is expected to influence the political landscape in upcoming elections. Republican candidates will likely face questions about their stance on national security and accountability, while Democrats are expected to highlight these developments in campaign messaging. At the same time, senior Republican leadership is reportedly split on how to respond. Some emphasize the leak's illegality, while others believe the substance of the allegations demands further scrutiny. Emergency calls were reportedly held within the party to determine the best path forward. President Trump, for his part, has denied wrongdoing and suggested the memo may have been fabricated or misrepresented. On Truth Social, he labeled the resignation demand politically motivated and criticized members of Congress who supported it. Legal experts caution that dismissing these allegations without a thorough investigation risks undermining oversight. Attacking lawmakers for exercising their duties could further escalate the crisis rather than resolve it. At its core, this moment raises a larger question. Should national defense ever be used as a tool of political strategy? Observers note that if operational delays were influenced by partisan concerns, particularly during active military operations, it challenges one of the oldest expectations of the presidency, that the commander-in-chief places the nation's interest above all else. Lawmakers emphasize that this is not about party rivalry. It's about the principle that military decision-making must remain free of political interference, especially during live operations that impact service members' lives. Some Republican lawmakers who have not yet signed the letter are now reviewing the same classified information. Reports suggest they may join the call for resignation in the coming days, signaling that the bipartisan coalition could grow. Meanwhile, the president's legal team has shifted focus toward investigating the source of the leak, rather than addressing the substance of the allegations. This move has drawn criticism from those who say the central concern remains unanswered. Military families and veterans are watching closely. For many, the idea that operational decisions could have been delayed over political appearances or campaign endorsements is not just disturbing, it's disqualifying. The stakes are high. The balance of power between the presidency and Congress, the integrity of civilian control over the military, and the standards of executive conduct during national security operations are all on the line. Whether the resignation demand gains further momentum or stalls under political pressure, this episode has already exposed deep institutional fractures. It's a moment that will be remembered, and one that may help define the future of American democracy. Thanks for watching. Stay informed as this story continues to unfold.